Begin. The house was unnervingly quiet, the kind of silence that only exists when something monumental is about to break. Liam sat in his dimly lit office, staring at the glow of his computer screen. The evidence he'd gathered over weeks was laid out neatly. Photos, messages, videos, all meticulously cataloged. His lawyer had been thorough, his private investigator relentless. The cursor blinked on the screen, but Liam's gaze was fixed on the picture in his hand. Emily, his wife of 5 years, wrapped in the arms of another man. The image wasn't explicit, at least not in the conventional sense, but the intimacy was unmistakable. Liam had seen enough. A part of him wanted to throw the picture into the fireplace, to burn the evidence and pretend it didn't exist. But the other part of him, the colder, calculating part, knew there was no turning back. Tomorrow, he whispered to himself, his voice hollow. Tomorrow it ends. 5 years ago, Liam and Emily were the picture of a modern power couple. She was a rising star in corporate management, wielding her MBA like a weapon. He was the self-made man, a skilled software engineer who had climbed his way out of entry-level oblivion to a position of respect. Their early days were filled with laughter and dreams. They bonded over shared ambitions, their differences complementing each other. Or so Liam had thought. She's the Ian to your Yang. His best friend, Tyler, had once joked at their engagement party. But even then, cracks had begun to show. Emily was polished, articulate, and driven, always striving for the next rung on the ladder. Liam, on the other hand, was practical. He didn't chase titles or validation. Why don't you go back to school? Emily had suggested during one of their early dates. Liam shrugged. I've got the skills I need. No point racking up debt for a piece of paper. Emily smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. It was a smile Liam would come to recognize, a smile that hid judgment. When the pandemic hit, their lives shifted dramatically. Working from home seemed like a dream at first. They converted spare bedrooms into offices and settled into a new routine. But while Liam approached remote work with discipline, suiting up each morning to maintain a professional mindset, Emily took a more relaxed approach. Her days were filled with endless meetings, her door always open as she juggled emails and casual chats with coworkers. Liam respected her process, but it slowly became clear that proximity was driving them apart. One evening, as they sat on the couch, Emily glanced at her phone for the 5th time during their movie night. Work? Liam asked, trying to keep his tone light. Just a coworker, she replied curtly, tucking the phone away. He didn't press, but the seed of doubt was planted. It wasn't until months later that Liam stumbled upon the truth. Emily had handed him her old tablet one weekend, asking him to reset it for her niece. Sure, he'd said absently. She left for another one of her coworker gatherings, and Liam powered on the device. As he navigated through the settings, he noticed an app still logged in, a messaging app. Curiosity got the better of him, and he opened it. What he found made his stomach churn. Messages between Emily and her boss, Greg, were littered with flirtations, intimate confessions, and plans for secret rendezvous. Photos and videos accompanied the texts, each one more damning than the last. Liam's hands shook as he scrolled, his mind racing. This wasn't a momentary lapse. This was a calculated, ongoing affair. For weeks, Liam carried the weight of his discovery in silence. He hired a private investigator who confirmed his suspicions and provided additional evidence: hotel receipts, surveillance footage, more incriminating messages. His lawyer, an older man with a no-nonsense demeanor, advised patience. Don't act out of anger, he warned. Let's build a case that leaves no room for argument. But Liam's patience was running thin. Emily's late nights, her cold demeanor, and her blatant lies were fuel to the fire that burned inside him. The idea for the cake came to him in a moment of dark humor. If she wanted to have her cake and eat it too, he'd make sure the entire world knew. The delivery was planned meticulously. A custom cake with an edible photo of Emily and Greg embracing, paired with the words, "Here's your cake. Eat it too." The process server arrived at Emily's office during lunch hour, ensuring maximum audience participation. As Emily's co-workers gathered around, curious about the large box, the server calmly approached her. "Emily Carson?" he asked. She nodded, confused. "This is for you." He opened the box, revealing the cake. Gasps and murmurs filled the room. Emily's face turned crimson as she read the text and saw the image. "What is this?" she stammered, her voice rising. "You've been served," the server replied, placing the divorce papers beside the cake. Emily's scream echoed through the office as she swatted the box off the table, the cake splattering across the floor. The aftermath of the cake scene rippled through Emily's professional life like a storm. News of the spectacle spread quickly, and the once respected project manager became the subject of hushed whispers and pointed stares. Emily tried to recover her composure, but the damage was done. Greg, her boss and co-conspirator, was livid. He called her into his office the following morning. "We need to maintain professionalism," he said curtly, avoiding eye contact. "Effective immediately. All communication between us will be strictly work-related and conducted via email." "But Greg," Emily began, her voice trembling. "This is non-negotiable," he snapped. Humiliated and isolated, Emily realized she was no longer the golden employee she once believed herself to be. Her so-called friends, the co-workers who had cheered her on and encouraged her affair, turned on her, distancing themselves to avoid the fallout. By the end of the week, Emily was suspended pending an investigation, her future at the company hanging by a thread. Back at home, Liam was methodical in his preparations. He followed his lawyer's advice to the letter, splitting accounts, securing his financial assets, and documenting every interaction with Emily. When she finally returned to the house, it was late in the evening. Liam was sitting at the dining table, his laptop open, his phone recording discreetly in his pocket. Emily walked in, her face pale and drawn. She hesitated at the doorway, clutching her purse like a lifeline. "Liam, can we talk?" she asked, her voice small. "Talk," he said, not looking up. She sat across from him, her hands fidgeting nervously. "I made a mistake," she began. "I let things get out of hand, and I'm sorry." Liam leaned back, crossing his arms. "You're sorry you got caught?" Her eyes filled with tears. "That's not fair. I didn't plan for this to happen. I was lonely, unfulfilled. Let me guess. Someone convinced you I wasn't good enough for you." She flinched. His words hit too close to home. "I was stupid," she admitted. "I let people get in my head. They told me things I wanted to hear, and I believed them. But I realize now they were wrong." Liam's expression remained impassive. "So, now that you've been exposed, you want to come back? Start fresh? Pretend this didn't happen?" Emily nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I'll do whatever it takes. Therapy, counseling, anything." Liam stood, his chair scraping against the floor. "You want my help? Fine. Start by getting a lawyer. This marriage is over." Days later, Emily returned with a new plea. Her former co-workers, the ringleaders who had encouraged her affair, were now blackmailing her. "They're threatening to go to HR," she explained, her voice cracking. "They want $5,000 to keep quiet." Liam raised an eyebrow. "And why should I care?" "Because they'll ruin me," she exclaimed, desperation creeping into her tone. "You ruined yourself," Liam replied coldly. "You let them manipulate you into betraying me, and now you expect me to bail you out?" Emily sobbed, but Liam didn't waver. "You need to handle this on your own. Maybe it's time you face the consequences of your choices." As Emily's life spiraled further out of control, Liam focused on rebuilding his own. His therapist encouraged him to explore new hobbies and revisit old passions. On a quiet Saturday afternoon, he took a drive through the countryside, hoping to clear his mind. It was then that he stumbled upon a small, family-run kennel. The owner introduced him to a breed he'd never seen before: loyal, brave, and intelligent. One particular dog caught his eye, a young male with piercing amber eyes and a calm demeanor. "This one's special," the breeder said. "He bonds deeply with his owner. Once you earn his trust, he's yours for life." Liam decided then and there to adopt the dog, naming him Ash. The companionship brought a sense of peace Liam hadn't felt in months. The divorce proceedings moved forward, with Liam's lawyer ensuring he retained the majority of their assets. Emily, stripped of her job and reputation, struggled to keep up. During a court-mandated counseling session, Emily made one last attempt to salvage their relationship. "I can change, Liam," she pleaded. "I'm not the same person I was." "You're right," Liam said, his voice calm but firm. "You're not the person I thought you were. And I'm not the person who's going to fix you." The counselor tried to mediate, but Liam stood his ground. The session ended with Emily in tears and Liam walking away with a clear conscience. Months after the divorce was finalized, Liam stood in his backyard, watching Ash chase a ball across the grass. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and gold. For the first time in years, Liam felt free. Free from the lies, the pain, and the weight of a marriage that had been built on shaky foundations. As Ash trotted back to him, tail wagging, Liam knelt down and ruffled the dog's fur. "Good boy," he murmured. The past no longer held him captive. The future was wide open, and Liam was ready to embrace it, one step, one day at a time. Liam's return to normalcy wasn't without challenges. He had thought that once the divorce was finalized, the weight would lift entirely. Instead, he found himself grappling with the remnants of his trust issues. Every interaction, whether with coworkers or casual acquaintances, felt like walking on glass. He threw himself into work, taking on additional projects and responsibilities. His boss noticed the shift and called him into the office one morning. "Liam, I appreciate the effort, but you need to take care of yourself too," his boss said, leaning back in his chair. "I'm fine," Liam replied, though he wasn't sure if he believed it himself. "Fine isn't good enough," his boss said firmly. "You've been through a lot. Don't let it define you. Take the time to figure out what you want moving forward." The advice lingered with Liam as he drove home that evening. What did he want? The question felt daunting, but he knew he couldn't avoid it forever. Meanwhile, Emily's life continued to unravel. Without Liam's support, she had no choice but to face her blackmailers. The three women who had once been her closest confidants were ruthless, demanding money with veiled threats. Emily scraped together the $5,000, selling personal belongings and borrowing from her mother to make the payment. But once she handed over the money, they demanded more. "You think we're done here?" the ringleader sneered during their latest encounter. "You're our golden goose, Emily. Keep paying, or HR gets a full report." Emily's world darkened further. Her attempts to secure new employment were met with rejection after rejection, as rumors of her affair and workplace scandal followed her like a shadow. Her relationship with her mother, who had initially offered support, became strained. "I raised you better than this," her mother said one evening, her voice heavy with disappointment. Emily was left to confront a painful truth. She had burned every bridge in her life, and now she stood alone. Liam's life, in contrast, began to take shape in unexpected ways. One weekend, while out walking Ash in the park, he struck up a conversation with a fellow dog owner. Her name was Nora, a soft-spoken woman with a warm smile and a golden retriever named Milo. Their conversation started with light banter about their dogs, but quickly shifted to deeper topics. "You seem thoughtful," Nora said as they sat on a park bench, watching the dogs play. "Just trying to figure things out," Liam admitted. "Well, you've got good company," Nora said, nodding toward Ash. "Dogs are great listeners." Liam chuckled, feeling a flicker of warmth he hadn't experienced in a long time. Their paths crossed again over the next few weeks, and Liam found himself looking forward to their conversations. Nora's kindness and easygoing nature were a stark contrast to the tension he had lived with for years. Months after their last encounter, Emily showed up at Liam's door unannounced. She looked thinner, her once pristine appearance disheveled. "Liam, please," she began, her voice breaking. "I need your help." Liam leaned against the doorframe, his expression unreadable. "What do you want, Emily?" "They won't leave me alone," she said, tears streaming down her face. "Those women, they're destroying my life. I don't know what to do." Liam sighed. A part of him wanted to slam the door in her face, but another part, one that still carried traces of the man he once was, felt a pang of pity. "Did you go to HR? The police?" "I can't," she said, shaking her head. "They'll ruin me completely." Liam crossed his arms. "You've already ruined yourself, Emily, and dragging me into this won't fix it." Her sobs grew louder, but Liam remained firm. "I've moved on," he said quietly. "You should too." Liam's rejection was the final blow for Emily. She disappeared from his life after that night, leaving only a brief email months later apologizing for everything and wishing him well. Liam didn't respond. He didn't need to. The chapter was closed, and he was finally free. As the year drew to a close, Liam's life was filled with small but meaningful victories. Ash had become his constant companion, a source of comfort and joy. Work was rewarding, and he was finally starting to rebuild his sense of self. His friendship with Nora blossomed naturally, their connection deepening with each passing week. One evening, as they walked their dogs under a canopy of stars, Nora turned to him and said, "You've been through so much, but you're still standing. That's something to be proud of." Liam smiled, her words resonating deeply. "I guess I've learned that even when everything falls apart, you can still build something new." Liam stood in his backyard, watching Ash chase fireflies under the twilight sky. The air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of blooming flowers. The pain of the past had dulled, replaced by a quiet sense of contentment. Liam knew the journey wasn't over. He still had work to do, trust to rebuild, and dreams to chase. But for the first time in years, he felt at peace. As Ash trotted over with a wagging tail, Liam knelt to pet him, a smile playing on his lips. "I think we're going to be just fine," he said softly. And for the first time, he truly believed it.